Welcome back to Boomer's Playground, and today is going to be a different video. Sorry the lighting's really bad. I'm still waiting for a couple things. I'm going to buy a house soon, so I don't want to invest too much money at this apartment. But we just brought on another junior, and he's pretty good at asking questions and getting help. And it got me thinking, and it's something that I'm starting to see a lot more on the Discord servers, the Reddit channels, like the learn programming or web dev or whatever your subreddit of choice is. And it got me thinking. And per usual, I just want to state that I did the exact same thing when I was learning. So this video is not oh my god, I can't believe you guys are doing it. I never did. I did the exact same stuff. And that's the reason I noticed it, and the reason I want to share it with you guys. So there are two things that are really gonna traject like your learning or your ability to program. And they're gonna be getting help, which we all do. In October, I'll be 4 years at my job, and I get help all the time. We got guys with 10 plus years of experience who get help all the time. Like, that's just the job. You're not going to get the developer job and then be like, oh, dude, I know everything. You will forever be learning, and you'll forever be learning, switching languages and stuff like that. So getting help and learning and building your projects. So one thing that a lot of people talk about, I'm not sure if it's really like known. I mean, I know it's known, but I don't know if it's like popularized. But as a developer, you will continually be learning. You will continually be learning new things, and you have to do work on the side, right? A lot of people get into the dev world, or they think they want to get into the dev world because they're like, oh sweet, it's my job, I get paid a lot. But there's a lot of ongoing education that you kind of have to do on your own. You have to do by yourself, and it's not like another 40 hours, but there is a certain responsibility for you to continually teach yourself and to continually grow. So those are the two things I wanted to talk about. So the first one I want to talk about is asking for help and getting help. So I know I've shared Gordon Zhu. He's got a great how to ask good questions. A lot of people, you can't really envision it at the beginning because your questions are relatively basic because you're just working with just JavaScript, like, oh, my loop's not working, or my filter method isn't, something relatively easy or basic or kind of beginner. So when somebody asks for a lot of extra information, you may not be able to wrap your head around well, why the heck did they need that? And his article, and I'll put it in the description below, down here somewhere, maybe up here, I don't know. I'm bad at YouTube. But the quality of the answer you get is directly related to the quality of the question you ask. So if you give a quality question with all the pertinent information, you will get you should get a quality answer. It really depends on where you're asking. And this is kind of another weird spot, because the couple of Discords I'm on, one is a personal one with selected people who I know are dedicated and are trying. And then I've got a couple that are part of Udemy courses or the Odin project. And really anybody can become a member there, and anybody can solicit advice. So you may not always get the best advice, but that doesn't change the fact that you need to ask the best questions, both for your time and for my time or whoever else is answering those. So the two big things I wanted to talk about when you're asking for help or asking for questions, and this will become more relevant when you get into your first job, more so than Discord, because again, for the web developer bootcamp, I think there's maybe, and this is only off of what I've noticed, probably 15-ish people who have actual developer jobs on that chat. Otherwise, most of them tend to be learning just like yourself. But when you ask for help, A lot of times, the people that you want to help you, like myself or like Gregory B, or a couple other people on like the Web Developer Bootcamp specifically, the people you want helping you are not going to give you the answer. We are going to guide you to the answer because that's what the job is. There have been many times that I've spent a day plus on a problem troubleshooting it. And if all I ever knew how to do was be like, hey, what's wrong? And somebody gave me the answer, I would never be able to solve those problems. And so just like recently, I think like the past probably week or two, I've had consistent responses from people that get mad at me because I will be like, hey, what's the error say? Or, I'll ask these what seem to be simple questions to help that person find the problem, because that's when you really learn. You don't learn by having somebody right there and be like, oh, dude, you need to make that, const stay instead of let error, whatever it is. That doesn't help you that much. Finding the solution and struggling through that, that process is how you learn the language. And so, yeah, over the past week or two, I've been getting a lot more, I don't want to say negative, but I've been getting a lot more feedback where people get mad when I'm not just giving them the answer, or they're like, oh, dude, that's like way to ask just like simple questions. And it's like, well, if it was that simple, why didn't you solve it? And that's the point. I'm not saying that you should have solved it, but the fact that you think it's simple, but you still couldn't solve that problem means you need the help. And that's perfectly fine. We all need help when we're learning this. But, a lot of these people will have a bad attitude. They don't really want to kind of work for it. They've spent 30 minutes to an hour on this problem and they think, oh, that's enough. When literally, they don't understand that you will likely spend hours or days on troubleshooting issues when you get into the actual job. So I personally just keep a note, and I no longer respond to those people. It's probably not fair. It's probably not right. But, it goes back to asking the right questions. If I have to work to get the right information, I'm far less likely to help you. And again, I'm not trying to say I'm anything special or anything like super amazing, but I have a job in the field. I'm probably a decent person to give you advice or give you help. And so I'm the person you want helping you. And so with that in mind, again, you're not just going to do it. It's going to be a process. You are going to get it wrong, and that's perfectly fine. But the people like myself, people like Gregory B, the people who are good at helping, we can see when you're trying. Even if you didn't get it quite right, we can tell. Like, we can see like, oh, he missed a couple things or she missed a couple things, but they were trying to give us all the information they thought was relevant, and that's fine. And we can also tell the people that don't. So, again, I'm going to link it in the description of the video. It's Gordon Zhu, How to Ask Good Questions. At the beginning, it's going to be less relevant because there's a lot of back-end kind of stuff related to the question or related to that article. But what happens is when you start going through these processes, and even at work, there will be often times that I go to my manager, Alex. I'm like, hey, man, I need to pair with you real quick. I am just stuck. He'll come over to my desk, and he'll be like, cool, what's going on? And as I'm explaining the problem to him, just like if I was articulating a question to ask on Discord or Stack Overflow or Reddit or wherever, or on like my work Slack, I find the solution because you're baby stepping your way through it. So again, at the beginning when you're just doing JavaScript stuff, front end only, the second half of the article is going to be kind of a little less important, but just keep the idea in mind, and that's going to help you so much when you're asking for help, and you're going to actually start finding your own solutions to your own questions as you're kind of articulating these questions. So, so that's my big thing for like when you're asking on Discord, Reddit, Stack Overflow, or an area where you're not familiar with the people. So like, I have a small Discord that I'm a part of. I know those people, that's fine. But like, or my work Slack, I know those people, so I articulate really good questions, and I traditionally will find the answer. But yeah, when you're asking on Discord, Reddit, just like general groups that a lot of people are a part of, that you can get help from a lot of people that you don't really know if they're qualified to help or not. the better the question, the better you're going to be off. You may not always get the best question because whoever's on can answer and it may not be the right question, whatever. But just kind of keep that in mind as you're asking those questions. Now, in the actual job, when you get that job, I don't see this a lot, and maybe there's some relation to people who get jobs and people who ask poor questions or are bad at getting help. Maybe there's a correlation. I'm not sure. But one thing I see a lot on Discord, and I do every couple weeks, I do like an office hours. I get on like video chats. I mentor locally. I see a lot of people will ask a question and then they will continually interrupt the person they're asking the question about. No, I'm not saying you can't step in. Like if you ask me a question and I start talking about something that you just don't understand, definitely stop me. Whoa, what does recursion mean? Whoa, what does hoisting mean? Whatever the case is, it's okay to do that. What I'm talking about is somebody like, I think it was like a month or so ago at my local meetup. The person was going through the Colt Steele Web Developer Bootcamp, and they were stuck on one of the coding exercises. And so we just happened to be at the local spot. And so I was like, all right, let's go through it. And he asked me a question, and then as I'm talking, all this person is doing is interrupting me. Questioning what I'm talking about. And I'm not saying you can't question people, but when you're at a level where you're not really that comfortable with the language, like you probably shouldn't be doing that. Now it's a different story for you to be like, hey, one of the exercises is they give you an array of names. They give you an array of objects that have names in them, and they want you to uppercase the first name only. And so this person will be like, okay, well, I'm trying to use map here, but it's not working. I'll be like, okay, cool. I'm like, well, you're using map here, and your parameter and your callback function is named, person or whatever they named it. Like, what are you doing with that? And then they start questioning me, and they start asking, they're like, no, that's not right. And it's really, when you ask for help from somebody who they know what they're talking about, you need to just shut up and listen. And that's something I'm seeing a lot of people, again, not at my job. My job is really good about it, and I'm sure there's some correlation. But I see a lot of self-taught people, a lot of bootcamp people will continually just get in the way of somebody helping them. And really, you need to ask the question, and you just need to shut the F up. And it's harsh, but it's what it is. You need to just shut up and let that person help you. And I see so many people getting in their own way of getting help. So keep that in mind. Again, if you ask me a question and you're like, hey, that same exact example, and I'm like, well, the parameter in your callback function, and if you don't know what any of that means, definitely stop me and be like, whoa, hold on. Well, what's a callback? Okay, what's a parameter? Those are fine, but if the entire conversation is me trying to help you or somebody trying to help you, and all you're doing is, no, that didn't work. I did that already. That didn't work. Okay, well, you probably did it wrong, or you probably used the wrong thing. So I don't really mean don't ever talk when you're getting help, but that's really what I mean when I say, when you ask a question, shut up. Just shut up and get help. Like, that's all there is to it. So, so that's really the help part. So there's the whole Discord, Reddit, kind of people you're not necessarily sure of. You probably see them a lot talking on there, and you have a good idea if they're knowledgeable or not, but you don't really know them. Do your best to ask good questions. You may not always get good answers, but the better question you ask, the better answer you'll get, just kind of general. Then when you're talking about like a local group, or maybe like a smaller Discord group that people have broke off to be like more dedicated, or your job, or you're in a boot camp, or whatever the case is, you really need to focus on asking quality questions. And again, that's a process. You're not going to ask them right out of the gate, so it's okay to ask bad questions. But you need to focus on asking quality questions, and then you need to shut up and let the other people help you learn. So those are my two things for learning. The other thing I wanted to talk about was projects. So a huge thing on the Web Developer Bootcamp and a couple other Discords is everybody knows you need projects to get a job. Nobody knows what projects to build. And that's fair. I was in the same boat. Again, I'm not up here touting that I never did this. I did the same shit. I asked, what do I build? I don't know. Blah, blah, blah. Insert excuse here. And this was, I'm trying to think, let me find out who it was, because I think this person deserves a shout out. Oh wait, sorry, wrong channel. Okay, so on the web developer bootcamp, the name is the Angry Greek, was asking really good questions on the Node Express channel. Kind of, you could tell this was his first time, or their first time, kind of building something on their own, and that's awesome. That is freaking amazing that they went that route. And the things that they're asking are really solid questions. And something I mentioned even in the chat, if you go back and find it, I felt like that person was biting off more than they could chew. So me specifically, I'm in Arizona. We can now legally sports gamble, and I love watching sports and I love gambling. So what I'm building is a website where it's super rudimentary. You pick a team, you pick a sport, and it will give you the information that you need. So whether, like, how often do they win? How often do they win by a certain number of points? The one I'm working on now is batters. Like, how often do they get hits? Because you can, like, parlay or bet, like, 3 or 4 of them in a row, and you get more money the more that you put together, but then they're less likely to hit. And this really dawned on me because I was stuck. Was it getting undefined? I was getting something weird back from my function, and so I'm using serverless functions on Google Firestore or whatever, and I'm getting incorrect data back. And I'm sitting there thinking, and I've said this before, like, I cannot think from the beginning to the end of a project. I really have to baby step it through. And so the one thing I felt this Angry Geek was not doing was that person was trying to solve the whole problem at once. And while that's fine, and some people can do it, in this instance, they couldn't. And that's fine. That's not a negative thing. That's not a bad thing. That means nothing to how good of a programmer that person is. They were just trying to bite off more than they could chew. And so, and this is the same instance that I was experiencing. I was getting, incorrect data back, even though I knew I was sending the right data to the API. And so Alex, our manager at work, he just drops these little nuggets. You don't think anything of him till a week later, and you're just like, holy crap, he was so right. But he always says, don't trust your code. Just because you know it works, if you don't see it working how you want it to, don't trust it. And so I didn't. And so what I did was I stepped back and I was like, all right, let me just make a call to this function and let me just send back a static string. And I did that and I was getting it. Okay, sweet. So I know my connection from the front end to my serverless function is working. I'm sending data, I'm getting it back. Cool. Well, then I brought in the call to the API and I wasn't getting what I expected. All right, that's fine. So I made my request and I console logged that data on my serverless function. I ran it and I saw that I was making the wrong API request. And so this was kind of a similar thing that this person on the Discord group had, is they were like 80 to 90% there. Just everything was just right. They were just missing a couple things. And so when you start to build these projects, a lot of people think they need to be like combating eBays and Amazons and PayPals, people are like, if I can't build this amazing thing, why do I even build it? And that's the wrong attitude to have. You want to start super small. And that's what I do. So, the first thing I did with my site was front end only, I made a call to my API, and I got all the teams for a specific sport. And that worked. Perfect. So I know that works. So now I moved that call to a serverless function or a server, whatever you want. And this was to hide my API key because you want to hide those things because it's a paid service that I'm using. And then I got the teams to my serverless function. Cool, good there. Then I sent the data back to the front end. And so you really, really, really want to just baby step this stuff through when you get stuck, because we try and solve these huge problems that we don't even have yet. So this is not that person on Discord necessarily, but that person was starting off pretty small, starting off pretty incrementally, which was good. They just needed to break it down a teeny tiny bit more. But you will see a lot of people that are like, hey, I'm building a project. How would I accomplish this? And then you say, okay, well, what project are you building? And they'll list this huge list of things. And it's like, okay, you're trying to solve all the problems and you don't have any of them yet. You need to start small. So that's the big takeaway for projects is be super small, be incremental. It's going to suck. You're going to feel like you don't know what you're doing. You're going to feel like you're not accomplishing anything, but you're wrong. You're just taking it little by little. Now, if you're one of those people that can see the whole project and code it out of the gate, good on you. I'd love to have you on the channel. I'd love to have you do videos. I'm not that person. I need to do it step by step and see the data along the process. And I feel like a lot of other self-taught people are the same way. So those are really the two big things I just want to talk about. These are two really big areas that I don't think it's do or die for if you become a developer, but I do think it plays a huge role into how quickly you progress. So the two things are, when you're asking for help, follow the article that I'm going to share from Gordon Zhu. Ask the best question you can. 2, when you're asking questions from people you know are going to give you quality advice or quality information, shut up. Unless I'm explaining something or the person is explaining something that you don't understand, shut up and listen. Let them help you. By you interrupting, by you getting in the way, you're only hurting yourself. They already know the information. They're trying to help you. And so you getting in your own way is going to affect you a lot. And then the big thing is projects. Start small. It's going to suck because you're going to spend half a day and be like, oh, sweet, I've got all the NBA teams now. Ooh. But at that level, that's what you want. You just need to slowly start going into those things. So again, if you can just envision the whole project and code it, good for you. I'm not that way. A lot of the people that I help are not that way. And so if you're not that person, break it down into small chunks and just make these super small progressions. They don't have to be these huge, like, I'm taking on Facebook, I'm taking on Amazon. No, I got all the names from the NBA teams in America. I could hard code that, but I didn't want to. I wanted to use an API, and I baby stepped my way through getting all that information. So those are really the two big things. This one is a little harsh, a little more harsh, but I feel like with this whole the recession that's apparently coming, I'm seeing more and more people trying to get into coding because they think it's their easy way out, or it's their way to a big paycheck, and it can be. But we're starting to see a lot more people come into kind of coming into the atmosphere, and they're new, so they can't provide a whole lot, but they're really just being kind of negative, and that's not what we need in this community. So I can't remember who, I should have saved it, but there was a Twitter post I saw maybe 2-3 years ago, and it really stuck with me. And it was like, treat people the way you want to work with them, because you're eventually going to be working with these people. So kind of keep that in mind when you're giving help. So again, sorry if this is a little more harsh. I'm just getting to the point now where I'm seeing a lot of people that I help that I'm just honest to God with and just upfront. They're getting jobs, and they're getting jobs, I don't want to say quick, but they're getting jobs quicker than they were expecting. And I'm just sick of all this hand holding and, oh, well, maybe no, dude, you either are going to put the time into this or you're not. So sorry if this is a little harsh. I know it's probably not what a lot of people are looking for, but it's what works and it's what helps. So again, just keep those couple things in mind when you're asking for help and when you're starting your own projects. They're both processes that you will get better at. You will be bad at them at first, and that's totally fine. Like I said, the people that you want helping you can tell that when you ask a question, if you tried or not. So as long as you're trying, you'll be fine. Don't worry. But yeah, I hope you guys learned something from this. I hope this was beneficial at all. It really, really sucks because the times that you learn the most when you're programming are the toughest, which is when you start those projects and when you don't know what you're doing. But those are what people need to do, and those are what people traditionally aren't doing. And that's why a lot of people don't get the job, because they never actually start using the knowledge. So like, share, subscribe, share it with whoever you want. I'm going to leave Gordon Zhu's article in the description below. And if you guys have any questions, comments, leave them in the comment section as well. And, if you're in the Discords, at me. If you're active, we have kind of a smaller one that we kind of hand select people to come over to. So hit me up, and I hope you guys have a good weekend, good week. It's Thursday for me. So enjoy, and I'll see you guys in the next one.